Hi, it's Nicola from the People Mentor, and today I have the great privilege of having Professor Jamila Franklin here with us. And Jamila, without further ado, tell us what you do and a bit more about your business as well, because we're really excited to hear about it.
Well, Nicola, I'm so honored and pleased to have this opportunity to be with you today. You were a wonderful guest on my podcast. I really, really loved the interaction, and so did my guests in the audience. Yeah, they really enjoyed it. Well,
Thank
I
you.
am Professor Jamila Franklin, and I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia, in the U.S. And I have my business is entitled Oyende Enterprises, which is a holistic business. It's comprehensive. The only thing that we don't do is we don't provide medical advice, but we do everything else. I am a holistic health practitioner. I'm a certified Reiki master, a certified metaphysician, a certified aromatherapist, a college professor of psychology, and an energy medicine transformative person, practitioner. And I have specialized now for the past year and a half in healing ancestral trauma, which is a modality that was downloaded to me from spirit, God, whatever name you want to call that entity, to help people deal with their issues. A lot of things that you're dealing with, you think they are peculiar to you, but they're not. Some of the things you've inherited through your ancestral lineage. So I work with that. And then I deal with anything that's dealing with quantum physics in terms of getting your energy aligned and balanced, because a lot of the things that are happening now in the world are throwing people off energetically. So that's my passion. I'm very committed to it, very passionate about it, because I think we came here to have a life of enjoyment, of happiness, joy, and prosperity. And those are the areas that I work on.
Yeah, I think energy's a very big one, and we don't often realize how much our energy influences what we achieve. And I think sometimes we don't read our energy right, and we don't work with those energy fields that we have. And that's something I've become more conscious of as I've become older, and it's
Yes.
really interesting. And not so long ago, I did my human design and my gene keys, and that was fascinating
Mm,
because I then realized that I'd been working against my energy levels and not
yeah.
tapping into them.
Yeah.
And it's made a huge
Mhm.
difference. So now when I have those moments of quiet introspect, I work with it instead of trying to pull myself out of it, and that's actually when I'm my most creative. So yeah, it's a fascinating area, I think, and I think there needs to be a lot more work around it. So yeah, lots of things you cover. So looking forward to our chat. So to start with, you've run your own business for over 30 years. What's the one thing that's helped you stay consistent when everything else is changing around you?
Yeah. Well, my business has evolved because at first I didn't have as many modalities included as I do now because I continued my training. And the reason why I remained committed is because I saw people in dire need of support. And a lot of times you can't talk to family members or friends to get objective advice and information because they know you, and sometimes they just don't have the skills, the training, nor the insight. So my seeing that there was a dire need to support people in the areas of energy, in the areas of mental health, in the areas of emotional health, in the areas of physical health, that kept me committed. And that kept me pursuing other modalities to enhance my knowledge and to share that information with the people I knew and with the people whom I didn't know who became my clients.
Yeah, I think one of the things that goes generally is that we don't stop learning until the day we die.
Yeah.
And when you can see how it all fits together and how it's going to enhance what you do, it makes it easier to learn and grow as well, doesn't it? So I can see how all of the modalities that you've done fit together very, very easily. So, in your work on career transitions, what's the most common fear that holds people back from making a change?
The fear of the unknown when you're transitioning from one career to another, or life change. When you transition from being a mom with children to being an empty nester, people become afraid of change because change is dealing with something that you don't know about. And even though you may be dealing with something that's unpleasant now, at least it's unknown. So when people are going into that that area of not knowing, it becomes very scary for a lot. And then they remain stagnant. And so that's one of the things that I work on, having to understand that if that door of your former life closes, the window of your new life is available to you. So there are unlimited new possibilities that are now presenting themselves. And to step into the new, which is the unknown, and to have someone like myself guide you through that so it can be not as intimidating and not as scary.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I've just recorded a video and put it out around having a wisdom council around you as a leader.
Yes.
I mean, especially when you go into new roles. And I can remember many years ago getting my first management role, and it meant moving from Boston, Lincolnshire to Peterborough, and I wouldn't know anybody, and it felt completely alien. And I was a
Hmm.
wreck before I moved.
Yeah.
I was an absolute wreck. So I went to the herbalist. It's quite a funny story, really, because I went to the herbalist and I asked for something to help calm my nerves. Well, they gave me a little solution in a bottle and I started taking it. Well, I was zoned out. I was just like absolutely laid back, felt really weird. And then when I read what were the ingredients, as a herbalist, he'd put Valium in it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my goodness. So I actually stopped taking it, but it had worked. I was
Yeah.
able to go feeling like I'd had something that had just helped me come back down from that anxiety. And I think we kind of make ourselves quite bad at times. So you need to
Hmm.
do something to bring yourself back down, bring that anxiety levels down. So having
Yeah.
somebody there who can support you and understands where you're coming from is so important, isn't it?
It's very important because prayer is amazing. That's your putting your request out to Spirit, to God, to Jehovah, to Yahweh, whatever name you give that presence. And sometimes you just need to have a physical person to guide you to that place of feeling less uncomfortable. So when you are isolating yourself, I think prayer is something you ask, and meditation is something that you sit still and receive the answer. But sometimes you just need to hear a human voice say, you're going to be okay, or a hug, something that's tangible, because all these other things are wonderful and they're soothing, but they're intangible. And sometimes you just need physical interaction. So having the
Yeah,
counsel, like you mentioned, having a support group, having a person who is your coach or therapist or whatever, I think is critical, particularly now because everything is so uncertain. Nothing, nothing is the way that it was 10 years ago.
absolutely
So
not.
people are feeling very, very unstable.
Mm.
And to isolate yourself and hear the thoughts in your head that may not be um, that supportive of you, will just have you go deeper into the hole. So the counsel, like you said, having a support group, having a therapist like you or me, I think is critical.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And sometimes somebody just flipping it around at you.
Yeah.
So an example I used in the recent video was that the person had gone to somebody else and asked them to be part of her wisdom council. And when she said, I'm just new into management and I'm really concerned about it. The person that she asked said, "Well, oh, I'm so glad you asked me because actually I could do with somebody to go backwards and forwards on, and I totally understand because I can remember how I felt, and that's often when you pick the right people." They will have some sort of experience that will actually help you through it, which I
Yeah,
think is always important. So,
yeah,
yeah, I can see exactly why having somebody in your corner for career transitions or any change, like you said, the empty nesters, that's another strong one.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think, yeah, absolutely. So, moving on, you run a global podcast for people over 50, and I was very lucky that you had me on there, and I really enjoyed the experience. What has
Mhm.
surprised you most about the challenges or the wisdom people in this age group share?
I think in my talking to people, because like you mentioned, Nicola, it is global. I've talked to people from England, Australia, the Netherlands, New Zealand, America, of course, and Canada. I've talked to people in different countries, and the common denominator is that people who are younger tend to be dismissive. And so then it has you question sometimes your skill sets, particularly if you would like to enter the job market. They generally won't hire you if you're 50 plus. So then people start questioning their value and their skill sets. And what I've said is, look, the people who own the companies are 50 plus.
Yeah,
So that's the irony. The ones in HR are 40 and younger, but the people who own it are older. And they're discriminating against people who are the business owners. So my thing is to let them know you are valuable, you are worthy, you are important. Don't let ageism that is so prevalent discourage you, because sometimes people feel like, well, in some cases people need to work for financial reasons, and it's challenging for them to find employment. So they don't put their years of graduation down, they don't put their years of employment down because it would date them. So a lot of them become fearful that if they have to work, that they have aged out, that they are not going to be considered because of their age. And so it's really the opposite, because they have more to give. And also they're more stable. People who are younger, I know in America, will quit in a heartbeat. They'll just wake up one day and say, I don't feel like going to work. I'm done. We're loyal, we are dependable, we're stable, and we have a lot of skill sets. So I remind people of that, even in their family relationships. Sometimes the family members would treat you as if you don't have anything to offer. Oh, there's Nana. Oh, there's Grandpa. They're over the hill. They don't know what they're talking about. And so you feel as if you're being ignored sometimes, and sometimes disrespected. So I tell people you're not, and that's the reason why I formed my podcast. So people who are in similar age brackets, we can talk to each other. We don't have to be concerned about someone being dismissive. That's a number one concern of being dismissed because of age and
mm,
because of ageism.
yeah. Yeah, and it does go on. Let's not get away from it. Now, I've seen it at both ends.
Mm,
So I can remember, as I talked about on your podcast, about struggling with being left out of major projects and being ignored. And to start with, you can think it's the fact that it's you haven't got the skill set or you're not good enough, and you kind of
mm,
mark yourself down thinking that's what it is. When in reality, it's just this unconscious bias going on. They don't even realize they're doing it, that they just
mm.
think you're just there for a quiet life, you're just trotting along. And actually, they're not being fair to the business or the organization
Exactly.
because they're not
Exactly.
getting the best for the business.
Exactly.
Um, and
Exactly.
then I also saw it with some really talented young people who would be dismissed because of their age. And I've seen
Mm,
it with my youngest daughter who has a wedding photography business. And when she first started off, she would ask people, to get into the group shots and things, and she would be ignored and they'd be very dismissive of her because she was young. And she had to quickly learn authority and leadership, which was
Mm-hmm.
brilliant to watch. I mean, he made a great blog for me because you could see she grew into this person who exerted a calm presence but made it known that she needed what was to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
so so I've seen it both ends, and I think we miss out on so much when we're not pulling it in and just looking at all inclusive.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah,
I think, like you hit on a very important point, Nicola, in terms of unconscious bias, because it's really interesting because, as I mentioned, their bosses are 50 plus.
yeah, yeah.
The bosses are 50 plus, the owners are 50 plus. And so they are discriminating against people who may be desiring to come in as consultants or workers or whatever. And I said, but the person who hired you is older than you. So society, particularly in the West, glamorizes being young. No one wants to age. No one wants to talk about their years of wisdom because it's glamorized. Whereas in the East, it's the complete opposite. On the continent of Africa and in Asia, and in some European countries, you're revered because of your age.
Hmm.
They learn from the elders and they respond very well to you. They sit literally at your feet. So I think the West needs to rethink the model of youthism because and have a plate for everyone, not discriminate anyone based on age, but particularly those who are now elders in the community. They have a lot
Yeah.
to share and to give. So
And
that's the fear of most people that I've encountered on the podcast or whatever is the concern. Some people have the fear, but the concern about being dismissed because of age.
yeah, and it doesn't surprise me. And I have to say, from a business point of view, I do find that there is some discrimination around being older in business. And yet, when you look at the demographics, it's more and more people over the age of 50 are setting up their own business and probably related to the fact they can't get a job role because of their age.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so you can't really win. It's incredibly difficult out there.
yeah, yeah. But there is hope because we're here.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah,
know of other people who are. I know a lady who set up a group for over 50 women's, and they meet in London. So there is hope because people are chipping away at it, and
yes.
there will be a difference.
Yes, and I see it by virtue of the fact that you have this wonderful podcast. And my podcast, because Gray Life Sunrise is a movement, the podcast is just one part of it. But more and more people are stepping into their power who are 50 plus. They're owning the fact that they have a rightful place in society, they have paid their dues, and they have a right to not be dismissive.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. So keep up the good work with it. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what role do mindfulness and breath work play when you're dealing with conflict or pressure at work? And I think this is a really important question for anybody who's listening around difficult conversations or conflict.
hmm I think that's really important because what happens is when you're mindful, you're in the present, and usually people are in the future or in the past. And breath work and mindfulness keep you centered in your body and aware. And breath work is really important because when you're feeling anxious or out of sorts and you're breathing, I use the 4-7-8. You breathe in to the count of 4, you hold to the count of 7, and then you exhale to the count of 8. And that's what I teach my clients, and that's what I use as well. And it keeps you very present, and it calms down your nervous system, your breathing, everything slows itself down because of that. So, and mindfulness is having you stay in touch with what the person is saying in the moment, as
Yeah,
opposed to preparing your dinner in your head. preparing your next lecture or whatever. Mindfulness keeps you in the moment. And that's one of the problems with texting all the time. I don't text that much. I use the audio text because you can hear more with the audio than you can with a written text. So mindfulness with an audio text will help you hear what the person is saying. Give you an example. Someone could say in a text, if I ask, how are you? I'm fine, right? I'm fine. But in an audio text or talking to the person verbally, I'm fine. There's a very big
Mm,
difference.
a big
You can
difference.
tell in terms of intonation that the person really is not. So technology has its pluses and its minuses. I think we text too much. I think that we miss the social cues because we text too much. And I think people are becoming disconnected. So what I do, and people know, I text minimally. I use the audio text if I don't call you, so you can hear in my voice what's going on. And so it can bring comfort to you if you're going through a particular situation or a crisis. So mindfulness has you stay in the moment, pay attention, connect with the person on an energetic, soulful level, and it keeps you from being distracted. And that's one of the things that's happening. We have so many distractions. So a person is listening to you, maybe face to face texting, at the same time looking around to see what's going on in the environment. You're not present. And a
Absolutely
lot
not.
of people do that while they're talking to people they're texting. So you're not in the moment. So my
And I think, which I didn't really like, because you can read far more when you can see a person and
mm,
you can see the little flinches and just the tiny little movements that tell you an awful lot about a person, which I think people
mm-hmm,
don't often realise. So we'd often have the screens off, but you could still hear inflections in voices, and you would tune in that somebody wasn't quite right. So when I
mm-hmm,
had that happen, I would always ring the team member afterwards and just thought, I'm just checking in. Didn't think you sounded
mm,
quite right. Is there
mm-hmm,
anything you need to
listen,
share? Here if you want
mm-hmm,
me. And I think just that keeps that connection open. And I think there's not enough of that kind of thing. Um,
yes,
and I also think, as I said about the camera, if you have the camera on, it is intensive because you should be watching the people on the screen. And
yeah,
I've been in meetings where I've said something and I've just seen a little flinch in the eyes. It's ever so weird. And I just knew they didn't like what I'd said. And if you miss those signs, then you don't have that
mm-hmm.
opportunity to have that conversation then and there to, I kind of feel like you didn't like what I said. So do you want to tell me what you're thinking? Because then you start to build a better relationship.
That is so true. Those nonverbal cues, which are part of mindfulness and the breath work, tell you much more than sometimes what a person is saying in
Mm,
text or with their mouths. Sometimes I would rather hear a person say something verbally than to text me. But sometimes even with the words, they may mask. But when you're looking at the body language, you are so on point that that lets you know what's truly going on in the
yeah.
person's mind. That's very true.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something that we need to do more of. It's
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it? When my younger daughter, she'll probably be listening to this as well, but when she texts me or, sends me a message and I read it, I always read it like there's a tone to it, like she's not really very happy. And then when I
Mm,
ring her, I get a completely different type of vibe. So it's true, you can read so much into words, but they're the wrong reading. So it's really
yeah.
important to have the audio, to have the non-body, just to have
Yeah.
those proper conversations, isn't it?
It's very important. And I think we need to not become so robotic because people are becoming more robotic.
Yeah,
They don't like talking to people. I was talking to someone the other day who said, I don't like people. I found that to be very interesting. And I'm like, a person said, I don't like people. I was like, whoa. And I had heard that before from someone. And you would never think that from these two people because uh, one has since transitioned, but she always had a smile on her face and seemed to be very engaging. She said, I don't like people. And the other one works with people all the time, so she wants to have time out from people. But I said, wow,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
But
interesting. Yeah,
there's an awful lot there, and you have to say there's something sitting behind it, isn't there? And it takes some working out to find out what it is. And it could be, as you cover, trauma or something that's happened,
yeah,
but you've got to give people those times, and they've got to do it in the time that's right for them as well. So, because otherwise, you don't want to see it, do you? If it's not right for
right.
you to explore, you're just gonna butt heads.
Exactly, exactly. You're not going to be on the same frequency, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
It's true.
yeah.
It's true.
You've worked across education, healthcare, and corporate sectors. So, what's a communication mistake that you've seen show up in all these environments?
Okay, I think what shows up is that people tend not to desire to be honest in their communication. And so you can be, sometimes people feel, particularly women in the past have felt that to be honest meant they had to be rude and whatever. And women were conditioned to be docile and polite and, uh, yeah, docile and polite and submissive. Being honest does not mean that you have to be brutal. It just means that you're speaking what is truly important to you in business, in your personal relationships, regardless of what the relationship is, and setting ground rules where people will be able to listen. They may not agree, but set the ground rules that I want to listen to what you desire to share with me. So in communication, people just are not honest. They say things that they feel will be accepted. So a lot of times people become passive aggressive. They're not speaking their truth because they don't think it will be accepted, especially in a work environment. Speaking your truth may uh, lead you to be terminated, depending upon the temperament of your supervisor. So I think people are just not honest
Mm,
because they
yeah,
don't know the outcome of the honesty. They and sometimes they don't know how to share it in a way in which it can be heard because
yeah,
it can be very emotional or whatever. And people tend not to hear you when you're very emotional in your delivery. But honesty, I think, is the block to communication. The lack of honesty.
yeah. No, I think you're right because I can remember a time in the workplace where we had a quota of goods for performance management, quota of exceeds, so that you got a bonus, and um, people were very wary about being seen to be negative. So what they missed out on was the fact that they often had some very valid points to make, but they weren't being shared because they were worried they would then be marked down. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, the senior leaders realised that it was having a negative impact on the outcomes that they wanted. So they got rid of the quotas because they realised it was actually stopping that genuine sharing and problem solving that they actually wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's true.
that sort of fits in with what you're saying because people are frightened of necessarily saying what they really think, and
Yeah.
then it stops the business growth because you're missing out on these opportunities. And it is
Yeah.
hard, isn't it? Because it's very hard, it's very easy to sound completely negative, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about turning it around and thinking about if you go back with saying this isn't working, but if we did this and given a solution, it kind of changes the whole way it sounds.
Mm-hmm. It
So yeah,
does. It does.
yeah,
So I think in giving the honest feedback or statements, and then if if it's constructive criticism from you, you can also provide the constructive solution.
Right.
So then it doesn't seem like it's a personal attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
if you take away the feelings from it, which
hmm
can be hard at times, because when you're
yeah,
in that moment, that's really difficult. But
yeah,
that's what we have to try and do. And
yeah,
that moves me on nicely to many leaders worry about managing emotions at work, their
yeah.
own and others. And so, what's your approach to staying emotionally aware without burning out?
You have to pay attention to your body. Your body gives you signs. So if it's time for you to take a 15-minute break while at work, go to the bathroom, whatever, do that, because not paying attention to the signs is going to definitely affect you in a negative way in terms of high blood pressure, in terms of overwhelming stress, strokes, aneurysms, ulcers. You can be affected. So my thing is taking time out. Listen to the body. The body will give you cues and clues about when you need to take time off, to take a break. And it doesn't mean that you have to take a 2-week vacation all the time. It just means throughout the day, do the mindfulness for you. Deep breathing will calm everything down for you. The 4-7-8 breathing method. There's so many different breathing techniques. Aromatherapy with lavender. I'm a certified aromatherapist. So I have a wonderful blend called Peace Be Still that gets rid of stress, anxiety, depression, hyperactivity within children, sinus congestion, sinus headaches, migraine headaches. You just put it in and you breathe it. It just calms down the nervous system. But to ignore those signs would not be your best interest, because the body is on overload and it needs to have a break before it shuts down.
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. And certainly something I learned in my life with my heart attack. And I think when I look back, there were signs before um, around when I first started working for this large organization. I can remember getting really stressed, but I also had a divorce going on in the background, and
Mm,
they sent me to a relaxation class, and actually it was
yeah,
really, really good. So that was my first sort of dabble into that kind of area, and it really helped. So,
yeah,
and I'm so glad they did that. So that was an absolute bonus from them. So you need
yeah,
to look at what you can do to help yourself as well, don't you? Definitely.
yeah. And then I think exercising, something as simple as taking a 5 to 10 minute walk can help you uh, de-stress, because stress is a silent killer. There are people whom I know went to bed one way and woke up with a stroke. So they didn't
Yeah.
see it coming. They kept pushing through, like they say, mind over matter. I don't believe in that. No. Your spirit dictates and tells you, take some time off. Don't get so wrapped up on the treadmill of life that you don't honor your vessel, because your body is the most important thing that you have had from birth. And we have to learn how to honor it and take care of it. And we get the signs. But we keep pushing through until the body just says, I can't take it anymore. And then it just starts to deteriorate. So exercising, walking, deep breathing, being mindful, listening to relaxing music, aromatherapy, like with my product or any products that just calm you down. Those things can definitely help
Yeah.
you take step back and take a break. And we would tell people other than ourselves, look, if you had a friend going through what you're going through, you would tell him or her, you need to take a break from this. But we don't tell ourselves that. We don't give ourselves permission to step out of the rat race. We just stay in there until it becomes overwhelming, until our body then starts to break down. And we don't have to go to that
No.
extent.
We don't. You don't. So really sound advice there. Thank you. So, what's one small thing managers could do differently tomorrow that would instantly improve team morale? What do you think that is?
Listen, be mindful, hold a meeting and put their feelings on the shelf, put the need to be right on the shelf, and just ask, how are the employees really feeling about working in the corporation? Because let me tell you something, you can have a vision, but if they don't buy into your vision, it's they're not committed to working with you.
Mm,
So in order for people to be a team, they need to buy into and believe in the vision. And the vision is a we, not an I. So how can we collectively work together to make this program, this company, and whatever, this success that is designed to be? How can we, what do we as management need to do to support you? Do
yeah,
you need 15-minute breaks 3 times a day? Just write down your suggestions. Have them be anonymous so people can think, oh, wow, the boss knew that I wrote this because my name was on it. No, have them submit them anonymously, because then people feel heard and seen. But if you're constantly giving them mandates and directives, then they feel as if you don't value who they are.
absolutely.
So work becomes work as opposed to uh, work becoming an investment of my time. I'm giving it, and there is an exchange. I'm giving my time, and I'm receiving compensation and acknowledgement.
Yeah,
So there needs to be an exchange. It's not just, okay, you work for me, I don't need to receive anything from you in terms of comments or critiques. I'm the boss, and that's it. People feel resentful when people do that, which I really,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what does it do? It immediately puts your barriers up. You think, well, why
it
should I
does.
bother? You need to
It
realise
does.
that they need a voice and they need to be listened to
Yeah.
and valued, definitely. Some great suggestions there, so thank you. So you talk about helping clients, and this I'm really interested in this side. You talk about helping clients build their online brand. What's one tip you'd give someone who's quietly looking for a new role without raising red flags?
Okay, someone who is currently working, who's desiring to establish his or her own business.
Yeah,
Okay, I believe that this is an old school philosophy, and young people don't do this. Young people will quit a job and not have a job. That's how they are wired. But the old school way is you stay in the 9 to 5 or whatever, 10 to 6, until you have secured something else. And what you do is you have your main job support your uh, your up and coming business, and you decide what you have a passion for. Don't go into something just because it's trendy, because what's trendy today in 10 years may not be trendy tomorrow. And you're doing it as if it's a job. You're doing it to make money, but you don't have a passion for it. So
yeah,
it may work for you for a moment, but then it will feel burdensome, like a job, because you don't really like it. You're in it for the money only. So if you're deciding to build your brand, first decide what it should be, why you're designing it, and who will be your demographic. Because it's not just for you. Some people may say, "Well, I'm doing this because I just love to do it for me." Well, that's fine. That's a hobby. But a business is, you are giving people expertise or service or product, and in exchange they're giving you money. That's a business. And also they are honoring you because they're feeding up your energy. They know that you honor yourself. Let me give you an example. When I started my aromatherapy company, I have several companies, but when I started my aromatherapy company, I decided, after going into prayer and meditation, I had a price for my products. And that was a fixed price. It never goes on sale. So I went, there were a couple of people who told me, well, for that 1 ounce, I think that's a bit much. And I said, okay, I understand. That was my demographic. So I knew the time I put into creating the product, because I create my products myself, I make them myself. The amount of time, the amount of care, the amount of energy that I put into my products, the price points are on point. So it never goes on sale. You can get a slight reduction if you buy uh, several products, but it doesn't really go on sale. I think I did a sale maybe once or twice or whatever. And people are still buying. It doesn't matter because it's my intention. My intention was this is a quality product. I'm putting in quality time, compassion, and care to help people use these products to get rid of stress so that the body can heal.
Yeah.
And I'm certified in it. So therefore, I spent time and money to get the education to
Yeah.
produce this product and to really have a solid brand.
Mm.
So I don't think twice about the services or the products unless I get in meditation a sign or information that this person really needs, whatever, give it to the person at a reduced price. That's the only time that I would do that. But for the most part, I put it out there and those who believe in it. And then I also see myself as being worthy of being paid this amount.
Yeah. And that's an important point, isn't it? It's about
Oh, yeah.
valuing yourself and
Mm-hmm.
valuing what you've gone through, your experience, your studying. So it's, yeah, so it's a really important point. And that even applies to the workplace, as an
Mm-hmm.
employee, and recognizing what you have studied, what experience you've got. So it's a good point as well. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your workshops, what topic do people find it hardest to talk about, but always walk away glad they did?
Their their fears, their insecurities. Most people, particularly if they are seasoned like we are, 50 plus, people find it hard to be vulnerable and to talk about their fears. And I think that's with just cause. I don't think that everyone needs to know your innermost secrets unless it's in a controlled environment. Because people can use your information to to hurt you sometimes.
Yeah,
Okay? They can take your information. If it's not in a, a professional setting like a group therapy session or within the wisdom circle that you were talking about before, just to share your information randomly with people. And some people do that. I would never do that because there's no need for them to have that kind of information.
yeah,
So the fear of being vulnerable because people may think, how is this information going to be used? So if it's in a group setting, it needs to be disclosed that nothing outside, no one outside of this group has privy
absolutely.
to this information. And
Yeah,
then people will feel safe and more relaxed in sharing their fears. But to talk about your fears in a setting that's not in a controlled environment, unless it's with a very, very, very trusted friend, I think people need to proceed with caution with that.
yeah. I think there has to be ground rules in group
Yes,
settings, and you need to feel comfortable enough. And if you don't feel comfortable, then don't do it. I always say,
exactly.
yeah. And it is about people struggle to share fears, I think, and that's a good point. So thank you. And so for anybody running workshops or groups, there you are. There's a big tip for you. Make sure that you make sure it's a safe place for people. So
Hmm.
so you've seen a lot of people going through personal growth journeys. What does real confidence look like in a leader, especially in these uncertain times?
Someone who doesn't debate you, someone who, which is very interesting in terms of this country, someone who's not narcissistic, and someone who builds you up and not uh, tries to destroy you because your opinions are different than theirs.
Yeah. So I'd add to that that I think that links back to no ego, because
Yes,
I've seen leaders with absolute egos and think it's all about them, and that just
yes,
doesn't work, does it? So
that's absolutely true. And then people who are in leadership roles sometimes uh, flaunt their power.
yeah,
So they suppress true constructive feedback because they don't want to hear it. It's what they say goes, and that's it. So people then, that's not a leader, that's a dictator.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
different. That's a dictator.
Yeah, and it doesn't work. Again, the
Mm-hmm.
team, the business lose out because you're not getting the good ideas, you're not getting the creativity, you're not
Mm.
moving forward and keeping up to date.
Yeah,
It's just gives a really negative knock-on effect. So,
yeah.
you're absolutely right there. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my podcast. So before we finish, do you want to say where people can find you if they want to follow you and if they want to work with you?
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor twice. You're on my podcast and now I'm on yours. I enjoyed you. You've asked very, very thoughtful questions
Yeah.
and questions that the listener needs to know. And you've asked questions about me. So people now have a very good sense of who I am and what I can provide in terms of my services and my products. So my workshops are, I'm doing a lot now on a one-to-one basis, and I work virtually as well as in person. So if someone is in the UK, of course you can't do it in person, but you can do it via Zoom or uh, Teams, any of those virtual platforms. It can happen. So, and then I have classes too, and they're virtual as well as in person. So a person can get in touch with me via my website, and it's Oyende Enterprises, and it's spelled O like an orange, Y like in young, I like independent, N like in Nancy, D like in dog, E like an elephant, and another E like an elephant, N like in Nancy, T like in Tom, E like an elephant, R like in Robert, P like in Paul, R like in Robert, I like in independent, S like in Sam, E like an elephant, S like in Sam.com. So that's OyendeEnterprises.com. Or you can just Google me. I think there are 3 or 4 pages with me on it. Jamila, Professor Jamila, Jam like in Mary, E like an elephant, L like in Larry, A like an apple, Franklin, Franklin, Professor Jamila Franklin. And you can get my website, information about Gray Lives on the Rise. And please, if you're 50 plus, check out our YouTube channel. It's Gray Lives on the Rise, and that's GRA, not E, GRAYLIVES on ONTHE Rise, RISE. And we have our shows, weekly shows every Sunday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But you can look at it anytime in the UK because we also have replays. So go to our YouTube channel to check out our wonderful episodes at any time of the day that you are available. You will really enjoy it. So check them out, please. Click like and subscribe. Thank you so much, Nicola. I so appreciate you. Thank you. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much for your time, and it's been lovely having you on the podcast. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody, and see you for
Namaste.
next time. Thank you.